Well, hello, and welcome to Positively Positive. And I am your hostess, Susan Mintz. What an honor to be doing a groundbreaking show like this. It's phenomenal. I want to tell you why Positively Positive is called Positively Positive. It's because everything, anything, all things and everybody brings to our show something new, including our guest, our remarkably amazing guest tonight. His story is not like any I've ever heard either. We are doing storytelling shows. We don't just interview, we go in depth. We have plenty of time and we get the main things out of everybody. You can be having lost someone, as I did. You can be a volunteer. You can be a caregiver. You can be an activist. You can be someone who's recently diagnosed or someone who's been a long term survivor. You can be someone who's just passionate, like helping their community out. But this is a component that is all HIV related, and there's no one and nothing else like it. So thank you, Campbell Health Solutions, for seeing this, for seeing the vision I had 20 years ago for this groundbreaking type of show. It's phenomenal. Keep your stories coming because you are removing the stigma, you are helping break down barriers, and you are giving life in the best sense, in the best way to HIV to help remove it from our vocabulary one day. The reason I got involved is really very, very simple. I loved a man for 25 years as my husband and as my best friend for 37. My book is called Committed to Love, and it's a documented book. I documented when my husband he was very promiscuous, Dr. Jeffrey A. Mintz. Very promiscuous. I did not know he was a bisexual until we got married and on our honeymoon after I'd had a miscarriage. He told me he thought he was gay. Well, I don't know if you think you're gay. I think you are or you're not. But he thought he was, and he was very promiscuous, very handsome, magnificent looking man. And he was very promiscuous. When I heard about all these other STDs I got from him, they didn't bother me. They concerned me, but they didn't bother me. When I heard about AIDS in 1981, I knew it was time for me to take charge of my life and my marriage. And we had an abstinent relationship for the last 13 years of his life. The love was there, the intimacy, the travel, the 5-star living, everything was the same except there was no sex. Had nothing to do with intimacy. I stressed that constantly. And then when he took seriously ill with AIDS-related pneumonia in 92 and was put in the hospital, gravely, gravely ill, all I could do was write. So I took a little pad of paper and wrote, my God, this is a nightmare and I'm in it. And how do I tell parents and where do I go from here? And how do I do this and how do I do that? I went down to the bookstore and I bought spiral-bound notebooks and I never stopped writing until the day he passed on August 17th, 1994. I teach writing. I tell you, write in your journals. Write your story, even if it's a sentence a day. Write something about your life because you do not know in 10 years or 20 years or 30 years what you might do with it or who might come along to say, wow, you have a story. Yes, you have a story, but unless you write it down, you will never remember it. I teach writing. Write. If you go to a therapist, they're going to tell you to write in a food diary. They're going to tell you, they should, if they don't tell you to write your history in a document, if they don't tell you to write your therapy down, leave, and wait till you get a therapist that says, I want you to get a journal and write. When I got involved with hospice, because they helped, and they're such an amazing organization, I was a volunteer, 11th hour volunteer for 6 years. And I found so many of the people, the patients, the caregivers, the nurses, people I met everywhere, that I documented 24 of their stories in the book called And I Held Their Hands with a Hospice Heart. Each book committed to love, my personal journey, a woman's journey through love and loss, and my hand, I held her hands with a hospice heart. Both books have 24 chapters each. Well, every chapter is an issue, whether it's fear or doubt or stability or that won't eat or that what do I do? I don't know, long-term plan. Get my books. They're on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. Get them. And it's not like I need to sell books or I want to. That's not it. I'm talking about books that you might need to save your life or someone you know, because they will talk about issues. Issues is what I am. I'm a storyteller and a story writer. That's it. And I'm good at both. So they're on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. Go to SusanMintz.com. You can go to my Positively Positive page and see previous interviews, or of course at Campbell Health Solutions and SusanMintz.com, the books page. And you know everything you need to know about me, and I'm as easy to find as a Hershey bar. I always say that. Now, when the glasses come off, you know it's showtime. That is the key. So, after a pause, I will be introducing our guest, Mr. Michael Trauth, or Trauth. I didn't ask him his last name for real, but he'll be happy to. Michael, after I introduce our guest, I'm going to say, come on in, Michael, to Positively Positive. Hello, Michael. Welcome.
For having me.
How do you pronounce your last name?
Like Trauth. Almost
Trauth?
like mouth, but Trauth.
Trauth.
Yeah,
Okay.
almost like the fish.
Oh, the trout.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. I'll just write it down that way. That'll remember it much easier. Oh, it's so good to see you. You look so nice in that turquoise. You look like
Thank you. Thank you.
you look like Florida water. Anyway, when it's not polluted. So what I want to ask you is, I always start off was, where were you born?
In Louisville, Kentucky.
And that's the Kentucky Derby.
Exactly. The home of the Derby.
Did you spend many years there? Did you go to
I've
it?
been out there about 3 times to the Derby. Actually, got to say hello to Rod Stewart one year.
Did you find that the Derby, though, where it's set and where it's located, was a little bit disappointing?
No, I know that section of town. I knew it was there all along.
Because I found it when we visited there. I was surprised to see that it wasn't more flamboyant or a little bit more upscale. Just like in Texas, when you go to see the Alamo,
Right.
there's the department stores are everywhere. So, I'm always surprised how they put commercialism or a lack of it around the main things.
Yep.
And so, what did you do while you were in Louisville?
In Louisville, I went to college. I started at the University of Louisville in 1983 and pursued a college degree. I worked in the library there for about 15 years on campus.
What did you do there?
I was administrator, head of support services, oversaw the copier machines, the mailing, the building itself, the maintenance.
My
I
past,
started with the, I'm sorry, I started as a student in '83 and moved up. About 2 years later, my first manager job was the stack supervisor. I had like 25 students under me.
all right. My pastor is Billy Thompson, the basketball player.
Yes, I'm familiar with the name.
Yeah, he goes there all the time, but he was a legend. He won he was a national championship.
In the 1980s.
Yeah, and he played with the Lakers and the Heat, and he's my pastor for 20 years.
Small world.
Well, yeah, but it said there's a small world, but I wouldn't want to paint it.
Right.
So anyway, let me ask you then right off the bat, how did you get involved with HIV?
My brother was gay, and He came out about a month after Magic Johnson did in '91. He was living in Louisville. We lost our father in '82, and he moved back in town from Miami. And we became best friends as an adult. We weren't really close as brothers, but as an adult, we were best friends. And we drove down here in '91 to Clearwater to surprise our mother and our sisters at Christmas time. And then he told me that he was positive. I was the first one he told in the family that he was HIV positive.
How did you handle that?
Not very well. I went to the bathroom to cry pretty much right away. I told him I didn't want to bury him. We just buried our grandmother recently, and I told him I didn't want to bury him next to Myrnie. So
How was the relationship? Has he passed, or has he said
he did. He passed in '94.
Okay,
I found out I was positive 3 weeks before his birth, before his funeral. I found out I was positive 3 weeks before his funeral, and I contracted it from my wife.
Oh, well, we'll back up on that. I want
Yeah.
to just talk about when you found out that your brother in '91 was a homosexual.
Right.
Was he very promiscuous at that time with men? Do you know, or was it one partner?
No, he was pretty promiscuous. I should back up. He came out to me and my mother in '83 when I was a senior in high school. He took my mother and I to dinner and told us that he was gay. I've got two sisters that knew him as being gay anyway. I just didn't pick up on it. I was the youngest one of four. It was a girl, boy. And so,
You said you didn't handle it very well. Well, how did the relationship change, or once you adjusted to it, did you handle it differently?
well, me being at the library, I researched a lot of it and went to a couple of doctor's visits with him because I don't think he was aggressive enough as he needed to be to keep him alive.
And how old was he? Because this was the '90s when it was, very.
Yeah, he would have been 32 at the time.
Isn't it a tragedy? The young ones go.
Yeah.
The other thing then is, so going forward, so you had a link with Florida for a while because you had family
Yes.
in Bradenton.
And yeah, I'm Braden, Clearwater area, Tampa area.
Did you know you might live here one day, or you didn't think about it?
I had no idea. I really did not think about it at the time. I never would have thought I'd moved to Bradenton, really.
All right, and now though, with your brother's passing, how have you looked at HIV differently? And we're talking now 30 years later. How did you start looking at this disease, this virus, differently after this, though?
Well, after my own diagnosis, and it was at the era where they just came out almost with the protein inhibitors, and they were hit hard early and hit it hard early. And so I had a primary care physician that also had a couple other HIV patients, and one of them died, and my primary care physician gave me her Crixivan, the protein inhibitors that just were on the market. And so I immediately took it. I was seeing an HIV doctor at the same time as well, but she wasn't too sure about starting the medication yet.
It's very important to have an HIV, an infectious disease doctor who will listen to you and who you have a relationship with, because this is not like I have a cold, I have a cold and just stay in bed for a week and take this, you'll be fine. This needs you have to have a great communication with your physician.
Yeah. My wife at the time, it was her doctor as well. So my wife was HIV positive as well. She was the best friend to my brother in an HIV group. And that's how I got to meet my wife, the first wife, Zoe.
All right, so that's one, but let me back up. So you were you found out that you were HIV positive from
Yes.
from your wife?
Yeah, I contracted it from my wife.
All right, back me up to how you met your wife and take me up to that.
Okay. In '92, Kevin and I, my brother and I, went to DC for the AIDS quilt. We volunteered there for the whole quilt. In '96, unfortunately, he was a panel in the AIDS quilt. But in '92, he invited Zoe to go with us. She was a girl that just came into town fairly recently to Louisville. She was from all over, really. She's got oh my God, her story is amazing. But So, and they were best friends. And my brother never really liked any of my girlfriends. I don't know if they were competing for my time or what. And so I thought, well, maybe I'll meet Zoe and see what she's about. And she was beautiful. And so I fell right in love with her. And so it was about a year and a half after we were together that I contracted it. She had been married 3 other times before, and no one even contracted it. She's got a daughter that didn't contract it because she took AZT when she was giving birth. And so once I contracted it, like I said, the year Kevin died, and a year later, Zoe had a nervous breakdown, and we really thought she was dying and went into a nursing home for 8 months.
So, Michael, you met your wife, your
Yeah,
first wife, in an HIV support group,
pretty much. Yes.
and then did you know then that she was HIV
Yeah, I
positive,
knew she was positive. Yeah.
and and it didn't matter that you would marry her? Tell me about the relationship, how it was.
We just felt madly in love with each other. Madly just swept off each other's feet. Yeah,
Did you use protection in your marriage, or how did
not really that often. No, not often, to be honest with you. We used to tell people that a condom broke because I would have to be stupid not to use it, that way. So, and that was like 30 years ago. But it turned out I had a herpes infection, which I was unaware of. And that's how I used that as a vector to get into me. But Zoe's been with other men before, and none of them got sick or contracted anything. So she had a nervous breakdown after I contracted it.
Well, I tell you though, my husband had many STDs that he gave to me. But when I heard about AIDS, I knew we had to make some changes. But I do know that he had herpes. He would get sores on his penis.
Right,
And when he gave me that, of course, I took medication. I'm still on a cyclovir.
right,
So 400 milligrams a day. I've been on it probably for 50 years. But I do think, though, that because he would have breakouts and he would still have sex, I think that's probably personally how I think he contracted it.
right,
I think it was oral, and I know it wasn't anal. And so I believe, though, that it was probably through a herpes infection.
right,
Yeah. And so your wife was positive, you got married, and then you both are positive.
right.
And why did she have the nervous breakdown?
Just that she was so much in love with me, and she thought I was going to die as well. Because at that time there was not much medication on the market, and she was just concerned about me and just a lot of stuff that she went through. She got it on the streets of the Bronx in the early '80s, and she was doing IV drugs with her dad, who was a transvestite or pre-surgical. Yeah, he was transitioning, but and that's another story in itself. Like she hitchhiked when she was 13 from Seattle to the New York Bronx 3 times to finally meet her dad, and he was an IV drug user in the Bronx, and so they shot up for like 5 years together.
Michael, have you ever written this down? Because you have a book. You're
It's
going,
all in my head. It's all in my head.
I mean, you are amazing. Get your tape recorder out and start doing it because, I mean, you're talking about transvestites. You're talking about she had 3 other husbands in the house. I mean, your life is extreme. This is what this show is so about.
Yeah,
Listen to your story. If people can't relate at some level, then they're under a rock. It is
yeah, they
so
must be.
interesting. I have loved this, and Richard knows I've been so excited to do these interviews because people have stories. Everybody who's watched any of these interviews know you have a story. Tell it out, get it off your head and get it out into here. It's marvelous. But now, backing up, after she passed, you were still positive. When did she pass? What year?
In '03,
All right. And you were still on your medications. What were you taking then?
Trixavan. Probably at that time I might have been taking D4T in
Okay.
'03. Yeah, I started on Trixavan, and every 8 hours you had to drink 48 hours or 48 ounces of water a day. You had to take the Trixavan religiously every 8 hours. You couldn't eat an hour before or 2 hours after you took it. I was working at the library, and there'd be like retirement parties in the afternoon, and I would tell people, "I'm sorry, I can't have any cake." They knew about it. Me and Zoe were in the newspaper a lot in Louisville, Kentucky. We were on the front page of the paper on a Sunday morning for HIV, I wasn't positive at the time, but I'm just showing people that HIV is nothing to be scared of.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to email. I'm going to talk to my pastor and tell him that I have someone from Louisville who was on my show, and to give him your name, but you know him, at least you know Pastor Billy Thompson. He's
Yeah.
there. And so now, did you say you married again?
I married in 2008 down here, or 2009.
All right. And did you tell your future wife that you were HIV positive?
We met on a positive match site. She's positive too. And I had my first biological daughter she's now 12, that's negative, and she's my life. I never thought I would have a daughter.
Oh, wait, let me write this one down. You married your second wife for what? I mean, I'm so overwhelmed. This is
I told you I've just started my life is a book, maybe one day.
it is. It's marvelous. So tell me. Anyway, so you married your second wife. What was her name? What?
Amy
Amy. And you married Amy in what year?
in '09.
In '09. And you met in an HIV positive dating
Website.
site group?
Website. It was a website.
Is there one? I never even knew there was one.
Pozmatch.com. POZ match.
Oh, pause match.
.com.
Jesus, I bet I could find a few interviews there.
Yeah.
You think so? You're going to find me out a bunch more. So anyway, pausematch.com, if anybody's interested who's HIV positive and wants to meet someone who's HIV positive, is this either of the same sex or both sexes, or they don't
It
care?
takes all kinds of sex. It doesn't care what you are.
And you have to be HIV positive.
Pretty much so, yeah.
Well, I wouldn't see anybody who would not want to be.
Right.
I mean, why would you go there if you're not? All right, so is she still, and you had, oh, wait, let me get another piece of paper out of here. So, you're going through I'm going through two sheets of paper with you. I can tell you I'm interested. All right, so you both met on posmatch.com.
Yeah.
And how old are you?
I'll be 59 in January.
Oh, you're a puppy. All right.
Oh, yeah.
77.
I'm a year from 60. I never thought I'd be here at 60.
Trust me, I'm 77. I've been a widow 30 years, and I don't even want any man all these years to know my zip code. I am so focused on my career as a writer, speaker, and doing these things that come along. I don't want emotional attachments. I
I understand.
I mean, because I had the best. No one could give me any more than I have or what he left me, and I had the time to explore these other opportunities that come along. And I know that if I was emotionally involved, it wouldn't work because they would
Right.
want too much for me that I can't give. And especially at my age, I'm requiring enough care for myself, self-care, but I'm at the best time in my life because I'm doing something I really love as I wait for a series to come forth about my book. And get my books. You will love them. Now,
I will.
not that I'm promoting anything at this moment, but I do want you to know anybody who's involved will love them because you'll relate to the issues so much because
Right.
you had to deal with it.
Yeah.
So what age were you? You had a biological. How old was Amy when you met her?
She was 39. She was 5 years younger than me.
All right. So she was 39. So you were 43, 44.
Well, actually, it was a couple of years after we were married that even something happened. I didn't even think I could shoot. I thought I was shooting blanks because nothing ever happened with my first wife. And that's where the thought, so she called me one day at work and I literally told her to abort it. I didn't think we should have it. But she said, no way. I want you to have a biological kid. It's the best damn decision she's made for my life.
Listen to your woman.
Yeah.
But I want to get again, how old were you when
I was 46 at the time.
You were 46 when you married?
No, I was 46 when I had the child. I would have been 44 when we married.
44 when you married, and she was 39.
Yeah.
So there was a 5-year difference.
Yeah.
And then it was 2 years later?
Yeah, I was 46 when Kavina came along.
Wow. And where is Amy still alive?
Yeah, she's upstairs.
Ah, wonderful. Bring her on after. Anyway,
Okay.
so what about your daughter?
Her name is Kavina. I named her after my brother Kevin. Kevin, we put an A on Kevin and made her Kavina in honor of my brother.
That's beautiful. And so, give me some advice. I mean, you've lived an incredible life, a journey that's phenomenal, and you're still continuing to do it. But, you know, are you involved in the community in Bradenton with HIV community or organizations? What are you doing?
In the early days, when me and Zoe were active up in Louisville, I was on the committees, several committees. She was part of the PWA program or NWPA in DC, National Association with People with AIDS. We were on the Rolanda show. She was on the Jerry Springer show. I was in the audience.
Uh-huh.
We were on the Springer show like in '93 when he was kind of nice. He was found a mother that had her kids adopted when she died of AIDS. She had her kid pre-adopted and met the parents that were going to take her parents over, or take her kids over. So Zoe wanted to went on, was invited to go on the show and wanted to be a spokesperson for that kind of, we got boxes of letters for Candace, her daughter Candace. So, and I was on committees. We were all on committees, and um, the Jerry Springer, what else?
He was great for a while too.
Yeah, yeah. We were on Sally Jesse Raphael. The last time was in '98, the Sally Jesse Raphael show. She had, it was in '98 or '99 that she had us on for the Day of AIDS or Compassion for AIDS Media Day.
She was wonderful, wasn't she?
She
See,
was too.
she had her gimmick. She had the big glasses.
Yeah. I met her a couple times in DC at the quilt because we went back to the quilt in '96 with my sister and Zoe and I. We spent another week there volunteering again in '96. So I was quite active in the.
This is my gimmick. So you'll remember the lady who wears turbans and gaudy jewelry and is flamboyant, let's say. Tell me more about your daughter. So you're in Bradenton now. Amy is alive. You're both really well.
Yeah.
And she taking meds too. What do you take now? And what meds does she take?
I take the shot, Cabenuva, every 2 months.
Good.
It's amazing.
And you have a good doctor there, obviously.
Great doctor. I've seen him for like the last 15 years.
Oh my, that's one. Does Amy see the same doctor?
Yes, she does.
Now, how old is Kavina then?
She's 12, just turned 12 in August.
How does she handle all this?
She handled it like a trooper. She's a Trauth.
She's a trout.
Yeah.
But and from the moment she was born, and you knew she was negative,
Yeah, but we're getting tested like every 6 months for the first year and a half.
right?
And I remember just breaking down crying when the doctor told me on the phone that she was negative. So I knew she would be with the AZT. And she was also delivered cesarean C-section too, which reduces the.
Yes, much better.
Yeah.
Right? Going vaginally.
Yeah.
Yeah, much safer.
Yeah.
Did Amy? Did you have herpes? Then does Amy have herpes also?
No.
So she never contracted it from you then either. You just got it from Zoe.
Yeah.
All right. And so Kavina, she's 12.
Yeah.
So you, Amy, and Kavina live in the house. Both parents are HIV positive. Both are healthy.
Yeah.
Both are incredible. What do you do in the community? And Kavina, tell me another thing then. She's in school. She's 12 years old. She's handling a set of issues. I mean, in the schools today.
Yeah, she's a seventh grade. Middle school girls are terrible. Middle school girls are terrible to each other. Period. I think growing up. But
does she talk about HIV because of her parents, or is it kept a secret, or how do you?
she actually told her. She told her teacher a couple of years ago, and we didn't have a problem with it. We haven't had any problems with it. She knows about it. I just don't think she brings it up that much.
What about doing work in your community in Bradenton? What do you do?
I work as a permitting specialist for a pool company.
So you work for a pool. That's a good business here.
Yeah.
You won't be out of work.
Right.
You do pools.
Right. They never build the same pool twice.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. You like doing that?
It's a nice small family company. I like it.
But tell me though, what do you think though if Kavina starts high school and this subject comes up, do you think she'll be honest and comfortable enough to tell people that both her parents are positive, but
I
she's
really do. I really think so. She will be.
have you had this talk with her previously, even though she's only 12?
Yeah, we brought it up before, but she doesn't have a problem talking about it.
I would think because the both of you are so grounded, you and your wife are so grounded in accepting each other and the lives you've had, that I would think your daughter is probably very, very smart, but very oriented to be able to handle any situation that might come up. But she's probably not judgmental at all.
No, no, no. She's a star on the flag football team.
Yeah, judgmental. That's what these shows have got to keep doing, is removing the stigma, showing the faces of someone. There you are, willing to talk
Yeah,
openly. You don't know where this show is going.
no,
Perhaps it gets back to your daughter. You were on this show. She'll handle it just fine. But
exactly.
do you think perhaps you might tell her that you've been on a show that gets national at some point? We're getting Arizona, DC. People are coming in from all over with stories. Do you think though it'd be best to tell her the show you're on? Because you're also going to see your interview. We will let you know the week before when you're going to
Yeah,
air.
that's right. Yeah, she was in the living room. She's passing through here already. She knows I'm on doing something now.
Oh, if you want afterwards, when we're just about wrapping up, put her or Amy on. This
Okay,
Um,
okay.
but I think this is so interesting because children are going through so much in schools now that I would think it would be compounding an issue putting this on her, except coming from the house she's coming from.
Right.
She's probably very well adjusted because you
Yes.
are
Yeah.
the child. And I think so many kids today, I never had any, we never wanted any. And I still, I'm glad I don't have any because I'd have one like me, or I would have been probably let the kid stay in its room until it died. I mean, I just wasn't born to be a mother. And I mean, my relationship was so nuts anyway. But in general, I just think with what they're dealing with, that so much of what the kids are dealing with today does from a dysfunctional household.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I'm saying this from being around it. You don't have to give birth to see the problems. I've had half a dozen godmother issues that I raised, four little kids, African American boys by their mother was working. I had a couple when we were in Gainesville, when my husband was in Texas. I mean, I've always had someone that said they want me to be the godmother. And I'd look and say, are you out of your mind? I don't even like kids. Change a diaper, they throw up. This is green stuff in there. No, no, you're the perfect one because you would raise that child the way I would want it raised. And
Yeah.
pastor and prophet, they know that. That
Mm.
they've seen me with my godchildren before they moved to California. Very strict, very treating them like little kids, but they're adults in that respect. And I'd sit them down and tell them, you don't eat in Auntie Susan's car. You don't put your feet up. I'm not such. I would tell them, and I think when they come from a structured house,
Yeah.
kids come from a much better frame of mind. Because
They
if
do.
you're dysfunctional and all over the place, how do you really expect a 10-year-old, a 9-year-old, or a 12-year-old to handle it?
They can't.
They can't. They can't at all. Tell me a little bit more about everything. Just give me some more stuff. It's just
So,
fun.
so I moved down here. I was invited to move down here and join a family roofing company. After 18 years, they fired me in 22. I broke my neck in April of 2022 and didn't lose any kind of mobility or anything. They fired me a week later after I got out of the hospital. It was my brother-in-law and sister's company. So I'm just now getting back on my feet.
Family's wonderful when it works.
Exactly. Yeah. It,
Yeah. There's a scripture passage that says, "Better a friend nearby than a relative far away." But I've seen more dysfunction in families. Maybe the older I get, that's the more I see that it's not all Father knows best, and it's not all roses, and it's not all Mary Tyler Moore shows. If people even remember it, no, there's a
yeah.
lot. There's a lot of chaos between siblings,
Oh
and then
yeah.
throw some politics in over Thanksgiving and
Forget it.
see what you want to just stay in your room and get through the holidays. Um, give me some advice. Be now the father and be now the HIV positive person that you are and your wife. Just give me some bits of wisdom. Give me some nuggets of wisdom that you can give out to people.
It's always going to get better. It's always going to get better. You know, you never know what tomorrow's going to bring. So you got to be living for every day.
And what about testing?
Oh, you get tested and get your medicine, then you do your medicines religiously. They will keep you alive.
Yeah, do you think there's an issue with testing that the younger generation who doesn't maybe have never lost anybody, or the older women like me who just need companionship and we're willing, we go on a cruise. I always tell this story that this woman, she was in her 50s, she lost her husband, she was lonely, and she went on a cruise. She played mahjong every week with neighbors, with her friends. She goes on a cruise and she meets this man, and they have amazing sex through the whole cruise. 14 days of it's bliss. Well, after the cruise, she doesn't see him anymore. About 6 months after that, she's not feeling well. Her hair is falling out, her skin is itchy. She just doesn't feel good. She goes to her doctor, and the doctor says it's your age, it's postmenopause, or it's stress. Women are always stressed. Men are never stressed. Women are
Right.
always stressed. It's always stress. I'm going to not swear tonight, but yeah, you know, the new. So anyway, a few months later, she really is not feeling well. She's got a cough. So she goes to another doctor, and he asks her background, what's been going on the past couple of years. She tells him. Sure enough, she's HIV positive. Well, my first reaction, I've heard this so many times, my first reaction is stupid women. Just because you can't have children doesn't mean that the box is still not available.
Right.
You're still open down there to be able to contract it.
Yep.
Not stress. Think about your behavior. So I tell men and women, go ahead and do whatever you want, but get tested regularly. Safe sex is still the best sex. You wear your protection if you want to, but get tested and get on meds as early as you can because they are so much different now than they
Oh,
were.
yeah.
You does equal you. We have
Yeah.
long survivors that have come on and will be coming on that they're 30 years, 40
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
My Jeffrey was really sick. He wouldn't have gotten tested. He couldn't have lived like that. I was married to a man that lived life 5 stars. I loved it. I loved the roller coaster, the craziness of it. I loved my life with him. It's crazy. It was my life. And nobody can take committed to love away from me, you know? But
Exactly.
they can't. But the thing is that testing, he wouldn't get tested. I had to make choices because I knew as promiscuous as he was. How could he not? Your heart tells you it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Your brain tells you, don't be stupid, Susan. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
It wasn't for an abstinent relationship for those few years, but he wouldn't get tested. And when he got ill, we could see the signs coming for a year, but he still wouldn't do anything until everything was real. He was near death when I put him in the hospital, and he had 3 bouts of pneumonia, fought it, but the third one, he said, I can't do it anymore. He just shot me a look, and the look said hospice. He couldn't deal with it anymore. He was not someone who could have lived with a diagnosis like that.
Right.
He lived life too large to ever be saddled with anything. He wanted it his way, and he did control it. But other things other than meds, what advice would you give other than getting tested? How often? How regularly? What would you say? Get a good doc. I mean, what about the doctors? Some of them.
Yeah. Some of them, I mean, are better than other doctors. I was real fortunate to find a clinic down here that had good doctors. Like I said, I've been with her for 15 years, and it's important. I would get tested about 3 to 4 times a year at least, especially if you're out on this, you know, hustling, having fun out in the streets there, you know.
Do you do any counseling at this point for people, or are you going to get more involved as your daughter gets older?
I may. I'm not real sure.
Because you'd be excellent at it.
Thank you. Thank you.
You, And you do, I'm an empowerment person also. When I hear someone like you, I see you speaking to groups who are in the
We did
same.
some speaking. Zoe and I did a lot of speaking in Louisville before I came down here. I came down here and actually became anonymous because I was in the paper shortly about 3 weeks before she passed away. And then I did a speech. She died in '03. I did a World AIDS Day speech in '03 after she died. And I was in the paper then too. So,
Yeah, I think, I'm relating so much to you. It's amazing. I think almost as much as anybody. But I've lived in Boca for 40 years. We moved here from Houston in
okay.
'85. And we lived in a really artistic and incredible area with, I mean, didn't care who was in the bathroom. You were just stoned, having a good time and dancing. It was just,
Right.
it was the clubs, and we lived right around the corner from the best bars and the best clubs. And I mean, I'd be having Liza Minnelli at 4 o'clock in the morning in my house. And I was throwing marijuana into the brownie mix, and we were stoned out of our minds and watching the sun come up. But I do know that having lived on one side of Boca Raton, I always say I changed zip codes because people knew me so much on that end of town
Mm,
because of my activities and the media and the press I was getting. And there was that part of me. Yes, I also had a neck injury. I had a fusion between 4 and 6. I was a bodybuilder and had a neck injury. And so I moved also to get a smaller place. But I think part of it was I became anonymous here.
yeah.
And it's almost like now it's a resurgence. And I know that that's going to happen to you at some point
Oh,
because
yeah.
you have too much in you to share as well as your wife, Amy, does.
Yep.
So how many years now have you been married?
15 years next February.
What medication is she taking also?
The big horse pill and Trevina or Trivicay, and another. I can't even pronounce the other one that she's on,
So
but it's
she's taking several?
two pills a day. One of them's a big horse pill, and I have to break it up for her. Then the Tivicay is a small little capsule.
Yeah. But she's doing well too. She
She's
feels
doing well too. She
that's one.
never really been on her medicines religiously until me, and I'm religiously on her about it. I give them
So
to her every day.
yes, so you're caregiving, even though you don't need you're caregiving to each other at an incredible time in your life, but you're more of the caregiver when it comes to
Yes,
getting
yeah.
your
I was a
mom.
mama's boy. She was a
Yeah,
hospice nurse. My mother was a hospice nurse down here. And when she got into hospice, she said it was the most gratifying work she's ever done in the
it,
nursing field.
it was. I loved it. There's stories in my hospice heart book.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, 24 stories of people. They are so powerful. I think, and it also still has my life included as to why I could relate when a woman's standing outside her husband's door and she thinks it's her fault because he can't eat. And what can she do? All the issues that I heard in the airport, people I saw were wearing their hearts. So I think your wife will also love the hospice heart book because my stories are just incredible. But hospice work was the most gratifying, I
Yeah.
think, thing I've ever volunteered to do.
Yeah.
And, and why do you think that hospice is so incredible and it was so rewarding?
Just being there for someone to transition to death, she really got a lot out of that. And you need to have somebody there that knows what they're doing, for one, and how to accept it and help the patient accept it.
Yeah, once the patient accepts it, I think it's harder for the caregiver because the frustration sets in that you feel like there's more you can do when the person's saying they know there's no more you can do.
Right. And Zoe and I, we lost a lot of friends up in Louisville when they didn't really, at hospice at first told me, pretty much turned me away at first with Zoe. They came out and did an interview with us and saw us on the couch. I was the only caregiver that was dealing with her. They saw how stressed I was and called me the next day and said, we actually have a wing or a room opened up in their hospice wing of the hospital where it's a caregiver break. And I was
Yeah,
like, thank you.
the chapel.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was an incredible experience, and the reason I stopped, I went a year in after Jeff died. I started in '95 as an 11th hour, because I felt that nobody should die alone. As Jeff was in our bed, he passed the way he lived, 5-star with dignity and pride and control. Yet, but it was horrible. Needless to say, it was horrible. But when I got involved as an 11th hour, I felt nobody should die alone. And I would sit there at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning at the care center, knowing the person was getting ready to transition. No family, no friends, nobody. And I would just sit there at the bed and just wait for that last breath.
Yeah.
And I'd go out and tell the nurse. And there was just something so rewarding. But then my parents were aging. They were up in Troy, New York, and they were aging and getting up there into the 80s and early 90s when they passed in 92. And when I would go into the hospice room, I was seeing my parents literally at that point, getting to that point. And I knew I wasn't being effective. If you're not effective as a caregiver, how could you be effective for somebody else?
Right. Exactly.
Especially when it's critical type thing. This is
Right.
not a walk in the park. This is serious. So if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not good to Amy or your daughter.
Right.
So I went in and told the lady, that supervisor, the head of it, like I said, I have to stop because I'm going back and forth to New York all the time, every couple of weeks to take care of my parents and make sure they had everything they needed in a facility. And it just got to be too much, and they lived to be 92. So I think I have great genetics, and they were just like, they were together the whole time at their same place. They were together. They were married, 70 some odd years.
Wow.
So, but the hospice is great. Jimmy
Yeah.
Carter he's been in it for ages, it seems like.
Yeah.
You only hear about it when someone goes in. Oh, hear the music? You hear it?
Yes.
That's meaning we have to wrap it up soon. But in general, and that's kind of our cue. I love my gloves, but they get caught on everything. So in other words, you moved from Louisville. You had your wife there. You had one wife who died from AIDS there.
Yeah.
And then you met Amy down here in a,
Yep.
what is it, a posmatch.com for people
Yep.
to know. They want to meet someone who's positive.
Yep.
Doesn't matter if they're homosexual or heterosexual.
They take off all of.
Doesn't matter. And you've been married then for 15 years to this wife. You're both positive.
Yep.
But you have a biological healthy daughter named Karina.
Kavina.
Oh, what a wonderful story. Just please tell anybody you know.
Okay.
I'd like to interview your wife.
She would be interested in.
Yes, I would like her. You have the link.
Yeah.
Go on. Pick a day and time and send it to Richard, because I think her story is equally amazing. I've never had two people on that were like that. And I think it would have been good to do the two of you together, but we didn't know this.
No, I know.
So I would like to have Amy on. So I would just say thank you for your candidness, your honesty, your passion, and that you are a vital and valued person in this fight against HIV. And you will continue to get testing or promote testing and get on meds. And I also want to say thank you for watching Positively Positive. And I'm Susan Mintz, absolutely committed to love and to positively positive with great stories like Michael Trauth's.
Thank you, Susan. It was an honor.
It was an honor here, too. We'll see you, Richard.